Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the male reproductive system. Last week we talked about the female reproductive system, and so now today we're going to start diving into the other sex. So the male and the female reproductive system, they actually have a lot of similarities. They both consist of primary reproductive organs and accessory glands, and both the male and the female also experience similar phases of sexual desire, and their systems have the same goal of uniting an egg and a sperm so that fertilization can take place. So there are a lot of similarities, but today we're going to focus more on what's unique about the male reproductive system. So we'll go ahead and we'll start taking a closer look. But first, I want you to take a few moments to pull out a piece of paper and a pen, and I want you to brainstorm and think about and write down what you know about the male reproductive system. So this can include functions or processes or anatomical parts, anything that you know about the male reproductive system. I want you to write that down. Okay, class, let's bring it back in. So as we go through the lesson today, you can see what things are new to you, what things you kind of knew a little bit about, and what things you learned about today that kind of helped to clarify and resolve any misconceptions that you might have had before we started this lesson. So first we're going to start off by talking about the unique reproductive cells that males possess. So this cell is going to be vital in reproduction, and it's produced in large quantities in the male reproductive system. And this cell is called the sperm. So the sperm, they're produced in a structure called the testes. So this is a testis right here, and it's actually going to be encased in something called the scrotum. The scrotum helps to regulate the temperature of the developing sperm, and the testes is actually composed of a tightly packed seminiferous tubule. And that's what we see right here, this kind of tightly packed seminiferous tubule. And the testes kind of almost divided up into these almost look like orange slices, but these little areas, and we'll have seminiferous tubules found in each of these areas. So if we were to take a cross section of the testes and kind of look at the seminiferous tubule at a different angle, this is what it would look like. So when we look inside these tubes, we can actually see the sperm developing from the outside in. So as we get closer to the lumen right here, we can see that the sperm become more developed. And this right here is just an image of what a sperm looks like. Kind of gives you an idea, but they're very, very microscopic. So after the sperm have been created in the seminiferous tubule, they're going to travel into the epididymis. So right here we have the testes composed of that tightly packed coiled seminiferous tubule, and the sperm are going to travel, like I said, from the vas efferens, which is a tube, into the epididymis, which just kind of adheres to the testes. And over here we can see another image of that. Here's the testes, and then here's the epididymis. So the epididymis is going to be a single coiled duct, and again, it just adheres right next to the testes. And this is going to be where the sperm develop their tail, and also where the sperm are going to be stored until they're needed or until ejaculation takes place. So the epithelium that lines the epididymis is lined with stereocilia, and the stereocilia actually help to absorb excess testicular fluid. So when ejaculation takes place, the sperm are going to travel up the vas deferens, and this right here, this red tube, this is called the vas deferens. So the sperm are going to travel up this tube. So with your partner, I want you to talk and come up with a hypothesis of how you think sperm are able to move up this tube. I'll give you a few seconds to think about that. Okay, I heard some really good ideas as I walked around the room. So you guys can kind of shout out some of the ideas that you had. We can talk about them. So really, really great ideas. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about two processes that actually help sperm to move up this cord. So the first is going to be the tail. So the sperm actually develop this tail, or it's called the flagella, or the flagellum. And the sperm use the energy that's obtained from fructose metabolism, which is carried in the fructose is carried in the seminal fluid. So they use that to kind of use it as energy to move their tail. And so that's the first way that the sperm can move up this tube. And the second is through muscle. So the vas deferens is actually encased in something called the spermatocord. And this right here is a cross section of the spermatocord. So the vas deferens would run right through here, and then this is actually all muscle. So the spermatocord is composed of lots of layers of muscle. And this muscle will contract and relax and help to push the sperm through the reproductive system. So it's pretty effective and pretty efficient. So the vas deferens will eventually connect to the seminal vesicle. So we can see here's the testes again and the epididymis. So sperm are created here, they're transferred in the epididymis, and then will eventually travel up the vas deferens. And then right at this point, the seminal vesicle meets up with the vas deferens at a place called the ejaculatory duct. And the seminal vesicle is going to secrete fluids that ultimately will help become semen. So at this point, the sperm and the semen mixture are going to travel through the prostate gland, which is right here. The prostate gland is going to secrete an alkaline fluid, and that alkaline fluid contributes also to the semen. And the alkalinity of the sperm helps to the alkalinity of the semen helps to prolong the life of the sperm. So that's really efficient as well. So again, the sperm will travel through the vas deferens, pick up some fluid from the seminal vesicle, pick up some fluid from the prostate, and then it'll continue to move down the urethra. So this kind of yellowish looking tube is called the urethra. And the urethra is going to run down the length of the penis. So during an erection, the penis is going to become erect, and the erectile tissue that's found in the penis is going to fill with blood, and the sperm eventually are going to be released through the tip of the penis, where they will then search for an egg and try to complete the process of fertilization. So this process, this pathway can sometimes be a little bit hard to understand, kind of a little bit hard to kind of put together and visualize. So we are going to watch a short little video that kind of puts all these steps together.
Action. One of the most important organs of the male reproductive system are the testicles or the testes. They are enclosed in a sac known as a scrotum. The scrotum helps keep the testicles at a temperature lower than body temperature. This is important since the sperms are produced in the seminiferous tubules located in the testicles. The epididymis is a system of convoluted tubes that connects each testes to the vas deferens. It is responsible for emptying the sperm into the vas deferens. The vas deferens is connected to the seminal vesicle and the prostrate gland. The seminal vesicle and the prostrate gland release secretions that mix with the sperm in order to form semen. The ejaculatory duct carries the sperm into the urethra, located in the penis.
So hopefully that video kind of helped to put all those steps in order and helped you to visualize and to see in action the path that sperm will take from the testes all the way to eventual ejaculation to the penis. And in my opinion, one of the best ways to remember things sequentially is to use mnemonics. So I'm going to teach all of you a mnemonic that I often use to remember the path that sperm takes through the male reproductive system. So the mnemonic that I like to use is Stephen Thomas visits every veterinarian and every dentist until Passover. So the first letter of each word correlates with the first letter of each word that is in the path that sperm takes. So Stephen Thomas would stand for seminiferous tubules, visits would stand for vas efferens, every would stand for epididymis, veterinarian would stand for vas deferens, Every dentist would stand for ejaculatory duct. Until would stand for urethra, and Passover would stand for penis. So again, Stephen Thomas visits every veterinarian and every dentist until Passover. And the pathosperm is seminiferous tubules, vas efferens, epididymis, vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, urethra, and penis. And two other structures that we left out are going to be the prostate and the seminal vesicle. These are the two that secrete the substances that make up the semen. So a mnemonic that I often use to remember which areas or which glands secrete the substances that make up the semen is I remember semen have pythons that secrete venom. So that stands for semen. And the two different glands that produce the semen are the prostate and the seminal vesicle. So again, semen have pythons that secrete venom, and that stands for prostate and seminal vesicle. So that's going to be all for today. If there's any questions, you guys can raise your hands, and I can answer any individual questions that anybody might have. But for the rest of the class period, I'm going to hand out this piece of paper, and I want you to label the structures that we just talked about in class today. I want you to label as many as you can, and if you need help, raise your hand and work with your partner and see if you can come up with all the different areas and organs and glands that we talked about in class. And after you finish that, I want you to pull out the Venn diagrams that we started last week. And last week we filled out this side over here that talked about the female reproductive system. So over here I want you to write down some things you learned today about the male reproductive system, what makes it unique. And then if there's any similarities, I want you to fill that in the center portion. So you guys can work on that, and I'll walk around the class and answer any questions and kind of explain things again if you need any help. But let's get started working on that.